where legends breathe again. Eldmyth. The air grows still and heavy, as if the very forest holds its breath. A faint, acrid scent of crushed stone and ozone hangs in the mist-shrouded glade, a perfume of petrification and ancient power. From the shadows between gnarled, moss-covered oaks, a sound emerges, not a growl nor a hiss, but a dry, rattling whisper like scales dragging across weathered parchment. This is the domain of the Basilisk, the Serpent King, a creature woven from the darkest threads of nightmare and legend. Its name, spoken only in hushed tones for centuries, evokes a primal fear that transcends culture and epic. It is the gaze that turns living flesh to cold, unfeeling stone, the breath that withers the lush green into barren brown. To understand the basilisk is to delve into a deep-seated human terror of the unnatural, the corrupt, and the utterly lethal. Our journey begins not with a roar, but with that unsettling silence that precedes its arrival, in the damp, forgotten places of the world where sunlight fears to tread. We will trace its slithering path through history, from the bustling markets of ancient Rome to the secluded, snowbound villages of the Alpine valleys, uncovering the truths that lie beneath the layers of myth. What manner of beast is this that can kill with a glance? Is it a creature of flesh and blood, a magical aberration, or a symbolic manifestation of humanity's own destructive potential? The leaves rustle without a wind, and a single, fallen sparrow lies frozen in a permanent state of flight, its tiny form transformed into a delicate, feathered statue. The basilisk is near. Our first historical footprints lead us to the dusty scrolls and vibrant mosaics of the classical world. The Romans knew it well. Pliny the Elder, in his monumental natural history, describes it with a scholar's chilling precision. He speaks of the Regulus, a small but deadly serpent, whose very presence is a blight upon the land. It is said to be born from a most unnatural event, a serpent's egg, incubated not by its mother, but by a toad or a cockerel, a perversion of the natural order that results in a creature of pure venom and malice. Its crown, a stark white spot or a crescent-shaped mark upon its head, earns it the title of Little King, a monarch of a desolate and poisoned kingdom. Its movement is not a slither but a progression, its body raised high as it propels itself forward, leaving a trail of sterility in its wake. The grass withers where it passes, the berries on the bush shrivel and blacken, and the very insects fall dead from the air. Its voice is a weapon, a hiss so potent it can drive other snakes to flight in terror. But its most infamous trait, the one that has cemented its place in the pantheon of monstrous beings, is its gaze. To look directly into the eyes of the basilisk is to receive a sentence of instantaneous death, a transformation from vibrant life to inert mineral. The victim's expression is frozen in a final moment of horrified recognition, a permanent monument to a fatal curiosity. This was the creature that populated the nightmares of legionnaires marching through foreign marshes and haunted the imaginations of natural philosophers trying to categorize the terrors of the unknown world. As the Roman Empire crumbled, the legend of the basilisk did not fade. It transformed, migrating northward with the flow of trade and tale, finding a new home in the cold, superstitious heart of medieval Europe. In the Alpine villages nestled between soaring peaks and deep, shadowy valleys, the basilisk became the cockatrice, a creature born from another unnatural egg, this one laid by an old rooster and hatched by a serpent. The cockatrice fused the features of a dragon and a cockerel, often depicted with a serpent's tail and the head, wings, and legs of a barnyard fowl, a grotesque parody of the familiar. Its gaze retained the same petrifying power, but its symbolism evolved. For the medieval mind, it was not just a physical monster but a spiritual one, an embodiment of the devil, of heresy, and of sin that could corrupt the soul as easily as its glance could corrupt the body. Its image was carved into church misericords and illuminated in the margins of psalters, a constant reminder of the evil that lurked just beyond the sanctified walls of the church. The terror it inspired was palpable and practical, Travelers would avoid certain caves or rocky outcrops rumored to be its lair. The discovery of a strangely shaped stone or a petrified animal carcass was enough to send a village into a panic, prompting calls for a brave knight or a cunning folk healer to confront the beast. This pervasive fear necessitated a complex web of folklore, rituals, and protective measures. How does a community live under the shadow of an invisible, gaze-based threat? The answer lies in a blend of practical observation, sympathetic magic, and sheer ingenuity. One of the most widely believed counters to the basilisk's power was the use of a mirror. The logic was elegantly brutal. If the creature's gaze was lethal, then turning that gaze back upon itself would be its own undoing. Tales were told of brave, or perhaps foolish, souls who ventured into infested areas armed not with a sword, but with a polished steel shield or a looking glass. The moment the basilisk saw its own reflection, it would be struck by its own curse, turning to stone in a final, ironic act of self-destruction. Other methods involved the use of weasels, which were believed to be immune to the venom and could hunt the serpent in its burrow. The air would grow thick with the scent of rue and other pungent herbs, burned in doorways to purify the air and ward off the creature's miasmatic breath. In some regions, specific chants or prayers were recited, and intricate symbols were drawn on thresholds with chalk and ash. These practices were not mere superstition. They were a psychological armor, a way for common people to reclaim a sense of control over an environment filled with invisible, existential dangers. Let us now turn from abstract belief to tangible encounter, to the stories that gave the legend its blood and bone. Consider the tale of the village of Otranto, a fictional hamlet lost in the Carpathian foothills. For generations, the shepherds spoke of a stone sleep that would occasionally claim a sheep or a lone wanderer near a particular sulfur spring. They were cautionary tales, until the winter the spring did not freeze, and a strange, warm mist began to creep down the mountain slopes. It was young Alara, searching for a lost goat, who first saw it, a creature the color of tarnished brass, coiled upon a rock in the center of the steaming pool. Its eyes were not like those of any snake. They were multifaceted like polished obsidian and seemed to swallow the light. The goat was already a gray statue, its mouth forever open in a silent bleat. Alara, frozen not in stone but in terror, met its gaze for a fraction of a second before throwing herself behind a boulder. She felt a wave of coldness pass through her, a numbness in her limbs that took hours to fade. She fled, and her testimony forced the village to act. They did not send a warrior. They sent the old, nearly blind carpenter, Stefan. Armed with a large mirror salvaged from a nobleman's carriage, he walked slowly towards the spring, his steps guided more by memory than sight. The subsequent crack, like a mountain splitting, echoed through the valley. When the villagers dared to approach, they found a new stone formation by the spring, a twisted, serpentine shape of pure black rock, its own sightless eyes staring back at itself for eternity. Not all encounters ended in confrontation. Some myths speak of a symbiotic, albeit terrifying, relationship. In the lore of the Black Forest, a different version of the basilisk existed, one that was less a hunter and more a guardian of profound secrets. It was said to dwell in the deepest, oldest parts of the woodland, in places where the trees were so dense they created a perpetual twilight. This forest basilisk was a creature of earth and root, its scales resembling bark and lichen, its movement so slow it was almost imperceptible. It did not seek to petrify, but its gaze would still bring a change, not to stone, but to a state of profound, timeless stillness. Those who accidentally stumbled upon its lair would report a sudden, overwhelming peace, a cessation of all thought and desire. They would stand for hours, or even days, in a waking trance, witnessing the slow, majestic turn of the forest's life cycle. When the effect wore off, they would be found unharmed, but forever changed, speaking of having understood the language of the trees and the patience of the stones. These individuals often became great sages or hermits, their perspective permanently altered by their brush with this ancient, contemplative power. The creature was neither good nor evil. It was simply a force of nature, an embodiment of the world's slow, grinding, and indifferent wisdom. The duality of the basilisk is perhaps best exemplified in the alchemical traditions of the Renaissance. To the alchemist, the basilisk was not a monster to be slain, but a symbol of the magnum opus itself, the great work of transmuting base matter into spiritual gold. Its ability to turn flesh to stone was a metaphor for the fixing of the volatile, the solidification of spirit into matter. The basilisk, in this context, was sometimes a composite creature created in the laboratory, a homunculus or a product of combining specific, often toxic, substances. Its venom was seen as a powerful, destructive force that was necessary to break down materials to their primal state before they could be rebuilt into something greater. The gaze represented the focused intention of the alchemist, the power of the mind to effect change upon the physical world. In these secret, smoke-filled laboratories, surrounded by glass alembics and copper stills, the myth was intellectualized. The fear remained, but it was a fear of the power they were attempting to wield, a respect for the destructive potential that was the necessary counterpart to creation. The basilisk had evolved from a rural terror into a complex philosophical concept, a key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. As the Age of Enlightenment dawned, pushing back the shadows of superstition, the basilisk began its retreat from the natural world and into the realm of metaphor and fiction. The rise of empirical science could find no fossil record, no specimen in a jar, and so the creature was officially classified as myth. But it did not die. It transformed once more. In literature, it became a powerful symbol of the deadly sin of envy, of a hatred so potent it could metaphorically paralyze and destroy its object. It appeared in heraldry as a symbol of deadly power, a warning to one's enemies. The great fantasy authors of the 19th and 20th centuries, from the Brothers Grimm to J.K. Rowling, seized upon its iconic lethality, reintroducing it to new generations. In the modern imagination, the basilisk is often larger, more draconic, and its petrifying gaze is sometimes depicted as a visible, beam-like energy. It has become a staple of role-playing games and blockbuster cinema, a boss monster to be defeated with courage and cunning. Its psychological roots, however, remain the same. It still represents our fear of the unknown, of a threat we cannot reason with, and of the corrupting influence of absolute power. The dark forest has been replaced by the dungeon, but the primal fear it triggers is unchanged. And so, what are we to make of this enduring chimera, this king of serpents that has haunted us for 2 millennia? The basilisk is more than the sum of its myths. It is a dark mirror reflecting our deepest anxieties about the natural world's hidden dangers, the poisoned well, the venomous snake in the grass, the inexplicable illness that strikes without warning. It embodies the fear of corruption, both physical and moral, the idea that a single glance, a single encounter with something profoundly evil or alien can permanently alter or destroy us. It represents the ultimate violation of the natural order, a creature born from a paradox, whose very existence is a plague. Yet in its later interpretations, it also symbolizes the transformative power of confronting our fears, whether through the practical cleverness of the mirror or the introspective journey of the forest trance. The basilisk teaches us that the most terrifying monsters are often those whose weapons are not claws or teeth, but perception and influence. It is the venomous rumor that destroys a reputation, the ideology that petrifies the mind, the trauma that freezes a soul in time. We have externalized these fears into the form of a serpent with a lethal gaze, and in doing so, we have given them a name and, in some small way, a means to be faced. As our exploration concludes, the mists in the ancient glade begin to dissipate, and the unsettling silence is broken by the tentative chirp of a bird. The immediate threat has passed, but the legend remains, etched not in stone, but in the collective psyche of humanity. The basilisk, in all its forms, continues to watch us from the pages of our storybooks and the flickering screens of our cinemas. It is a permanent resident of the shadowy borderland between reality and imagination. We have dissected its history, analyzed its symbolism, and recounted the tales of those who faced it, yet a part of its mystery remains stubbornly intact. Perhaps this is its true power, not to turn us to stone, but to remind us that the world is still filled with wonders and terrors that defy easy explanation. So the next time you walk through a silent, misty wood and feel a sudden, inexplicable chill, or when you come across a strangely shaped stone that looks almost like a frozen creature, remember the basilisk. Do not look too closely into the shadows between the trees. Some kings are best left to their forgotten kingdoms, reigning in the quiet, dark corners of our world and of our minds. Another legend fades, but the next awaits. Like this video, subscribe and continue the journey through myths.